Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how
He's alive!
Welcome to where the weird ones are.
Every time I speak, I want the truth to come out.
Powerful figures in Hollywood as well as powerful politicians who are in fact not human. They're reptiles or they're lizards or perhaps extraterrestrials.
I don't think it is a human. I think it's a Sasquatch.
Go ahead and run! Run home and cry to mama!
Let's get weird.
What's up, you fucking weirdos? Welcome to another episode of Where the Weird Ones Are. My name is Kevin, but you probably already knew that, and if you didn't, now you do. Today's episode is with author Brandy Anderson. I can't tell you enough. This conversation was pretty eye-opening, and for me, anyway. We talk a lot about reincarnation and the Bible. So we talk about her book. It's called Through the Veil, A Glimpse into the Afterlife. I definitely recommend it after talking with her. It sounds extremely interesting. Um, she has an encounter with her grandmother and she learns things about the other side that she didn't know before. So, and she shares that information with us here tonight. I really hope you all enjoy the things that she has to say and check out her book. Again, that's Through the Veil: A Glimpse into the Afterlife by Brandy Anderson. She's a lovely lady. Love listening to her talk. She might even start her own podcast with a friend of hers. So looking forward to that if she does do that. So yeah, it was a lovely conversation. I really enjoyed it. She's a lovely lady. So, but if you want to flavor up your food, you know what I'm about to say. You know what I'm about to say, bro. Get yourself some Bigfoot's Breath by Flavors of the Forest. It is really good raw garlic dust. Um, it's a lot better than anything that you're gonna get at the store. I can tell you that. Very potent. You can taste it. I eat it on everything. I literally do. Steak, cheeseburgers, chicken, fucking I put it in I put it on my pizzas. I put it dude, garlic bread. I make garlic bread with it, dude. It's delicious. It is so good. I love it very much. Um so please head on over to flavorsforest.com/weird. Get yourself a bottle today before you can't, because one day the government's going to take over and they're going to tell you what you can and can't buy. So get it now and stock up on it because shit happens. Uh-huh. Um, but yeah, so next weekend, Saturday, September, is it next weekend? It's not next weekend. I think it is. Yeah. Fuck shit. Man, time flies. September 14th, I will be in Raynham, Massachusetts at the VFW vending. I'll have hot sauce. You know, I'll be speaking at Cryptid Fest. So that's 1 to 6. It's free. So come on down, check it out. Get yourself a beer. Um, it's don't bring your own beer though, because they got beer. It's a cash bar, so they want to make money. So yeah, if you want to, there's going to be a few vendors there that are fantastic people. So I highly recommend checking them out as well. If you're interested and you're in the area, that would be great. If not, that's cool too. So, I think that's all I really got to say today, guys. So, again, I mean, the conversation with Brandy was amazing. I really enjoyed it. So please like, follow, share, subscribe, do all that shit. Leave a rating and review. If your podcatcher doesn't allow you to leave a review, I would love it if you went over to where the weird ones are podcast.com and left one over there, which I will say I did get one the other day. So Alex Shea actually left one too. If I can fricking get to it. Yeah, so a lovely lady named Veronica, she said, "Hello there. Love your show. I was introduced through listening to the Spiritual Sisters, and your show is my number one," which I can't, that made my day, honestly, the other day when I read that. That means a lot to me. So, she says, "Anyway, I'm listening to your Tuesday conspiracies on Edison. I've heard years ago that he stole from the Mayan or Aztec Indians. I think they had discovered electricity. Just thought I would throw it out there. Thank you." So, I haven't looked into this yet, but I really appreciate her bringing like possible more information to the topic that we had discussed on our Conspiracy Tuesday. So, definitely going to be looking into that, but I just want to say thank you so much for that. It means a lot. And Spiritual Sisters is an amazing podcast. If you like spiritual stuff, they definitely are a top tier podcast. I highly recommend them. Nicole and Gabrielle. They're super sweet ladies. I actually listen to their podcast religiously. I listen to it every time they put out a new episode. So I've been listening to it for a little bit now. Um, and I actually had Nicole on recently, and Nicole's coming back on soon. I think in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. Um, but yeah, anywho, um, thank you for the comments. I love them, and keep them coming. I appreciate them, and I appreciate all of you for being here, listening to me ramble, listening to me have these weird discussions, because, I'd be doing it regardless, but I appreciate you listening. It means the absolute world to me. Um, so, yeah. So thank you. Pat, give yourself a little pat on the back. Um, but anyways, yeah. So also there's the hot sauce and the merch is on the website. So if you're interested in that, you can scoop yourself up some of those. If you're interested in the Patreon and supporting me financially, I guess it's $5 a month. You get a free coffee mug and you get access to story time. And I do believe I'm going to do a horror story segment on Patreon as well, exclusively on there. But the story times you'll still get the preview here on the normal feed. So when I have them, but I think the horror stories, I think I'm going to do those weekly, once a week on Patreon. Again, that's $5 a month. It is again free coffee mug and the shows and early access to the show. Sometimes the day before, sometimes it's a week before. It all depends on my schedule to edit and put this shit out. So, but yeah, let's get into it with Brandy. Again, she's amazing. You should check out her book. So, um, anyways, thanks for being here, guys. I love you all. I hope you have a blessed day. If you are struggling with your mental health, you need somebody to talk to. Here in the United States, dial 988. That is the National Suicide Prevention number, and they will help you out. I'm happy you exist. I'm happy you're here. I would love it if you stayed another day, and then after that, stayed a day, another day after that, and another day after that, and another day after that. So, all right, guys, let's get into it.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Let's get weird! Let's get weird! Let's get weird! Let's get weird! Weird! Get weird!
Hello, we are Rachel and Heather, the hosts of Like Mother, Like Murder podcast.
And you're listening to Kevin on Where the Weird Ones Are.
Oh.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode. So happy that you are here. Today I have author Brandy Anderson. She wrote Through the Veil, which is a book that I still need to check out. I haven't had the chance to yet, but it sounds amazing. So I'll give you a brief synopsis here. The book sheds new light on many traditional spiritual beliefs, including karma, the meaning of life, and reincarnation, all with clarity and guidance into a richer and more hope-filled understanding of the afterlife. Which it sounds amazing, right up my alley, kind of book that I would love to read. But anyways, so Brandy, how are you doing tonight?
I'm great. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me on your show.
Well, thanks for being here. It means a lot to take the time to come on and do a show. It's time is our greatest currency, so the fact that you're here means a lot to me. So, thank you for that.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure.
Is this is this book your first book that you've authored?
Yes, it's my first book. I never really had anything that was pressing that I felt like I just needed to write about until this happened with my grandmother. And it was so phenomenal for me in my life that I thought, why don't I write about this and share it with others?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds great to me. And so hopefully the listeners, I'm sure that a lot of them are readers. So, but if you don't mind walking us through the experience you had with your grandmother that led to this book.
Yeah, sure. So when my grandmother died, a couple months after she crossed, she found a way to communicate with us. I should back up a little bit, though, and say that when we're nearing the end of our physical lives, the veil between the spiritual and the physical becomes thin. And this is why a lot of people on their deathbeds report to see, loved ones who have crossed, people who, are unseen to the other people in the room, things like that. And so, but at the moment of actual death, the veil that is already thin opens and the spirit slips right through, and then it closes behind them. And it's usually like a split-second phenomenon. But my grandmother had an aversion to death. She was really afraid to die. And so as she approached the end, she really resisted. And so in her crossing, she was very resistant, and it caused her portal to remain open. She was kind of stuck, if you will, between two realities, and her portal remained open. And as she gained some clarity about her situation, she was able to cross and no longer be stuck, but that portal remained open, which allowed her to have access to the physical realm in a way that she could manipulate electronic devices, just manipulate the physical realm in a way that she couldn't if there was no portal. And so a couple months after she crossed, she the first thing she did was she turned the television on. It's a smart TV, a Roku, and she navigated to the search bar, and she typed the word hello. And my family who lives in that house were horrified. So they ran out of the house shrieking in fright. They called me. They were panicked. They didn't understand, what it could be, and they were afraid of it. And in their fright, the TV shut back off. It just turned off, and that was it for that day. But a couple days later, it happened again. The TV came on by itself, navigated to the search bar, but this time the word love appeared in the search. But they were horrified. So they ran out of the house screaming in fright. My aunt actually moved out. Because as this persisted, she became so frightened of it that she just packed a bag and went and lived with her son for a while. But in the course of time, I suggested, I was like, this is not stopping. Whatever it is, it persists. So why don't we sit down, engage with it, and try to determine what's happening here? Who is it? What do they want? And my initial concern was that it could be someone in the physical realm, like a hacker, someone just attempting to play a prank or something like that. And so the first thing that we did before engaging the communication was just check the perimeter of the house, the cameras, any kind of like Alexa or anything like that. We didn't have anything like that hooked to the television. But anyway, finally we did engage with whoever it was communicating. And in that engagement, we realized pretty quickly that it couldn't be a person in the physical realm hacking into the TV, because whoever it was could read our thoughts in real time. And so we were rocked to our core. We were we nearly fell out of our seats. We would have like a thought in our minds, something that we were about to ask or verbalize, and boom, the words would, the answer would appear in that search bar without us ever vocalizing what we were thinking. And also whoever it was able to tell us deeply personal things that no one else knew, like things that we had not shared with anyone, not even our grandmother. So pretty quickly we could see, hey, this is not someone in the physical realm hacking the television. It's definitely a spirit of some sort, but is it Granny? And as we communicated more tentatively, because we were really cautious, we didn't want to engage something bad. It became apparent that it was Granny because of her great love and devotion for certain family members. She apologized for some past hurts, things that needed to be said. She said she reconciled some relationships with others. She addressed some unhealthy patterns in certain family members' lives in a way that would bring health and wholeness to them. So like all of the communication was centered around her love and devotion for certain family members, for healing, for wholeness. And it was all out of like love and concern for those relationships, for those people.
That's amazing. That is amazing. I'd be honest with you though, I would have probably ran out of the house as well. Both times probably. I might have even burnt the house down. I'm not sure, but but yeah, no, that's an interesting way. So she started telling you guys things and obviously reconciling things. So this is how you put together that it was actually your grandmother.
Yes. Yeah. And we still have sustained communication with her. And so it's going on 3 years now.
Oh,
and
wow.
in all of that time, all of the communication has been geared toward health and wholeness, nothing but loving communication. None of it has been frightening or, in fact, on a couple of occasions in the beginning, when we were communicating, a couple of family members had like an argument and they were just kind of bickering, like family will do. And she shut the television off, like as a sharp, like, no, we won't tolerate. So she didn't want anyone to argue, and it was all about, you should love one another, support one another. You guys need to, be kind and compassionate to one another. So yeah, Jesus said, "You will know them by their fruit." And so all of this communication, the fruit of it has been nothing but good.
Nice, nice. And so this experience is what put you down onto the path of writing this book.
Yeah. So I was on a deeply, well, everyone's on a spiritual journey, whether they know it or not, but I was on
Right.
a, like a conscious spiritual journey at the time that this happened to me. So I was already in the space where I was wrestling with and pondering philosophical and theological questions. So once we got over the shock, that my grandmother was actually speaking to us, and got all of those pleasantries out of the way and all of those relational type family stuff, I took the opportunity to engage with her around those philosophical and theological questions. And so I had a lot of conversations around those things, and it just really served to bring things into sharp focus. A lot of things I already, they were already a part of my worldview. She just served to just help connect the dots, bring it into sharper focus. Probably the only thing that she shared that really wasn't a part of my worldview is that reincarnation is the truth. And so that kind of shifted things for me a little bit.
Okay, because I was going to ask you, because a lot of people that are, I'm not sure, there's a lot of religions that follow the Bible, that study the Bible and whatnot, and they're like, your reincarnation's not real, this and that. I personally kind of lean towards it being a real thing. But what are your thoughts on like what has what's the word that I'm looking for has established the transition of that worldview to you believing it more?
Yeah. So, well, reincarnation is not a part of the Christian tradition that I was raised in. So my
Right.
worldview is shaped by the belief that people are given this one short physical lifetime to get things right. And it's really a pretty nihilistic view of reality. But when my grandmother told me that reincarnation was the truth, it opened me to a more expansive way of seeing and being. Um, when my I would say reincarnation is a testament to the grace of God. That's kind of how I would put it. Time is not running out, in other words. We have unlimited opportunities to awaken, to evolve, to learn, to come into wholeness. And quantum physics even tells us that energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. And everything is energy. We are energy. So imagining that life only offers a few brief years on this earth to awaken, to get it right, is a very short-sighted view, considering that the earth is billions of years old and all of creation is continually cycling through death and rebirth, like the seasons, day and night. And I see now that reincarnation does not contradict Christianity. It contradicts mainstream Western Christian theology, but not Christianity itself. I found reincarnation offers a richer, more comprehensive faith. It helps to bring the problem of evil into sharper focus. Seeing through a reincarnationist lens allows me to have more grace for myself and others, because I'm no longer dominated by this distorted view that like time is running out, or this pervasive sense of urgency to figure everything out or to convert others. All of that is just dissolved. And I'm more able to give space to others to awaken in their own way, in their own time, to cultivate actual relationships with people instead of just trying to convert someone. And reincarnation is in the Bible. It's just glossed over in Western Christianity. And I cover this in my book also, but the disciples asked Jesus why the teachers of the law were saying that Elijah must come first before the Messiah. And Jesus answered saying that Elijah has already come and they did everything to him that was prophesied. And then in Matthew, it clarifies saying that he knew they were speaking to them about John, or they knew that he was speaking to them about John the Baptist. And so, and later Jesus even says that John the Baptist, he says, if you are willing to accept it, he is the one, he is the Elijah who was to come. So it seems that we have here Jesus saying that John the Baptist is the reincarnation of Elijah. And then there's the case of the man born blind. The disciples ask, why was this man born blind? Was it that he sinned or his parents that he was born blind? So the fact that they thought his sin could cause him to be born blind must mean that they believe he could have incurred sin before he was born. So it had to be some sort of past life karma. Yeah.
Yeah, good point. I often is there a way to so there's a lot of like psychics or clairvoyants and stuff like that where they can kind of look into your like connect with your energy and they can look into past lives that you have. Is there do you in your what you found with communicating with your grandmother and reading and researching the Bible, is there any like sustainability that they're actually looking into our past lives?
Yes, I would say that it's certainly possible. And I realize that
Okay.
not all mediums or psychics are legit. And so we have to
Right.
use discernment, when we consult people like that. And also there's a human element involved. So even if someone is legit and they really are sensitive and they have that gift, their own human psyche is also in there, their own ego, their own, their
Yeah.
imagination, if you will. And so it's kind of sometimes maybe a mixture, like maybe some of it is true and then some of it is like maybe misinterpreted by them. Not that they're giving false information intentionally,
Right.
but it could get lost in the translation.
Um, there was another. Oh yeah. So does your grandmother have plans to reincarnate at all?
She tells us that she does not want to reincarnate. And she
Okay.
also tells us that reincarnation is always a choice and that we all are afforded that choice on whether we will or not. And yeah, according to her, she does not want to reincarnate.
So I have a friend. His name's Bobby Shu. He also has a podcast called Mystic Talk, and um he has this theory on reincarnation where you kind of like you get to pick your life and what lesson that you learn. And you get to see it kind of like a movie trailer, kind of like your life is flashing before your eyes and then you're like, well, that's the one that I want because that's the lesson that I want to learn, and that's why we get deja vu and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting take on reincarnation. Do you have any insight on that? Like, do you think there's a possibility that happens?
According to my grandmother, that's not how it happens. She says that we do not actually choose anything about our incarnation, only if we will reincarnate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so but she would communicate that all of life is designed to awaken us. So we need not plan our lives out in that way in order to awaken or learn lessons. All of life is designed to be a lesson. Like, every moment is an opportunity to awaken. And, it's like that saying, there are no obstacles along the path. The obstacles are the path.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so that's kind of the truth of it. So yeah, she would just say that it's not scripted in any way. Every moment just lends a new opportunity to wake up and step off the wheel of karma.
That's amazing. I like that answer. That's a good answer. Um, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time reading my notes.
No worries.
So, w- with this experience and the spiritual journey that you're on, and then the writing of the book, um, how did I phrase that? I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I usually don't do notes either. I usually just wing it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do this a little more formal. Um, with all your experiences, oh, I already asked that question. I apologize for that.
Oh, no worries.
Um, so why don't we remember our past lives? Like what is the point to that, do you think?
It really would be too much to bear if we could remember all of our past lives at once.
Mm-hmm.
Really, the main reason is for an accelerated learning. The amnesia provides an opportunity for exponential growth. Like each life is a chance to learn by fully immersing ourselves into the many different human experiences for brief periods of time. Like gender, social status, culture, all of those different things we get to experience an array, like a different context for all of that stuff throughout all of these life cycles. And so the amnesia helps us focus on the life at hand. Otherwise, we would live too distracted. If we could remember all of our past lives, it would just be too much. And it's hard enough to awaken and let go, transcend the ego, however you would like to say it. It's hard enough to do that without the burden of those many life experiences bombarding us. But the rhythm of reincarnation is expansion and integration. So we incarnate into the physical, and then we acquire new experiences. And then when we die or leave the physical, we remember all of our past lives, and we're able to integrate all of that from our vantage point within the quantum realm. And so it's a cycle of transcending and including everything. So we enter the physical, there's like a constriction of awareness. And then when we leave the physical, there's an expansion of awareness. And ultimately, all of it is integrated, and we become whole through those cycles of experience and learning.
Oh, wow. That's interesting because I've always wondered like what it would be like to remember, but that makes complete sense. Um, and I do believe I'm 100% on like that. I mean, not the same level as you, but at least on the same line of thinking where our lives in each incarnation is meant to wake us up. And um to go a little conspiratorial on you, I do think that there are things like, so whether it's Illuminati or whatever label you want to give it, or them, I do believe that there is groups that know that when we're awakened that the world is complete, we're uncontrollable essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they have done things throughout the course of time because I think they reincarnate to continue coming back here so that they can try and keep it the same for them, if that makes any kind of sense. Where the rest of us are still dull and a lot of us are, it almost seems like a lot of us are just like kind of like robots just going through the motions. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And a lot of people just aren't even self-aware. They're not even aware of themselves, let alone to be aware of people around them. But it's within my belief that a lot of not only awakening ourselves, I do think that like the point of life is to love and give love, to be loved and to give love. I think that has a lot to do with it. And if people loved one another a little bit more, it wouldn't be such a dark place sometimes, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful. And I agree. I believe that they're the powers that be, however you'd like to frame that, the powers that be do keep people asleep, and they
Mm-hmm.
do it through distraction. We're just asleep, sleepwalking through the world, distracted by all of our addictions, and we're even addicted to our opinions. But if you can keep people lost in thought, if you can keep people divided in an us versus them mentality, then you have
Mm-hmm.
total control. And so, yeah, I would agree with that for sure. And it is all about love. That's what the awakening is. It's all about rooting out anything that interferes with love. And so that's the hard work of it. That's the painful process of it, is to disperse all of the things that interfere with love.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I could see that. Um, hey, it's I don't know if it's because that I started a spiritual journey or if it's just because the world is kind of just seems crazy right now, but it's become more apparent to me of the distractions and the divisive di di divisive, device. Oh my God, why can't I speak? Divisiveness. Oh my God, I'm not even gonna try and say it, but you know what I'm trying to say, I think.
Yeah, I got you. Divisiveness. Yeah,
There we go.
there it is.
Oh my God, I'm so sick of stumbling over some words. But yeah, so I see that day in, day out, people arguing over things that don't even matter. Um, whether it's politics or you know, a movie or what what are we gonna eat tonight or something like that. Like, I don't know. It's the the things that I see day in and day out. I'm just like, why? Why does it matter? Like road rage. Road rage is something that bothers me. I don't understand why people get so upset.
Yeah.
Like if somebody's trying to merge, I'm not gonna try and like shut them out from merging into my lane. I'm gonna slow down. Or if somebody pulls out in front of me, not that they're cutting me off, but if I continue going at my speed and I see them coming out, and then I'm going to get really close to them where I know that they're already coming out. So I'm just going to slow down instead of getting right up on their rear bumper there and getting upset and then ruining my day just because I decided to not slow down for them. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's silly things like that that I can't even wrap my head around anymore. Um, that everybody's angry about something, and I just like I said, I think the world needs a little more love, and I wish I knew how to help everybody, but I don't even know if I have the energy to do so.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think, really the only thing we can do is our own inner work, work
Hmm.
to live from a place of love. And as we do that, we do impact those in our midst. So whatever our sphere of influence is, those people will be impacted as long as we are operating in love. But yeah, so many people are just so identified with the ego, just completely identified with the world of form. And from that vantage point, everyone else is an enemy. It's very us versus them kind of thinking. And even in these circles where people are perpetuating the awakening, like they want to peddle information and make people aware of certain things so that the world wakes up, which that's good. That's a good and noble cause. But often in those circles, it turns into that same divided, very exclusive us versus them. Like we have the answers, you're all wrong, And so it just only serves to just perpetuate that division. So the only way really forward is to love others as yourself, like Jesus said. And when he said that, he wasn't saying, love others as much as you love yourself. He's saying love others as a continuation of your very self, like there are no others. And only when we see that, and not conceptually. Like I could, before my grandmother, I would have said we are all one. I believe that conceptually. But since having that experience and talking to her, it has shifted something within me, and it's more of a lived experience. And so you have to have that lived experience in order for it to really transform you in any kind of way. What you believe in your head really matters very little. It's like what has seeped down into the core of your being and changed you as a person.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, and now, like, so God's created this this whole realm, planet, however you wanna phrase it. Um, I don't think he created anything by mistake. I think everything serves a purpose for maybe we don't understand what each purpose these things are. But do you think that he created evil, or did it just come along with it, with everything? Like, because you can't have light without the darkness.
Right. Yeah. So, well, I would just say that, God is the creative source of all energy. And because God infused creation with free will, the potential for evil is inevitable. Like you were saying, it doesn't mean that God perpetuates evil, but that God created a free universe where good and evil are simply just two sides of the same coin. And like the world where nothing unfavorable could exist would cease to be good. There could be no such thing as good without bad, just like there's no, like you were saying, no light without darkness or tall without short. But God does not perpetuate evil. The duality of the human mind is the perpetuator of evil. And the sooner we come to terms with this fact of reality and forgive life for being just as it is, the faster we will evolve into higher levels of consciousness where we can stop blaming the darkness and just simply bring the light. While there is evil in the world for a time, there is also redemption and liberation. And the path into liberation is right through transcending, not eliminating the darkness. So I would also say that God is not an outside agent looking in. God is not a being, but the very ground of being. And God is completely immersed in the unfolding of everything, both the magic and the tragic. But God is the oneness that balances and reconciles all of the dualities, the benevolent energy that is working all things for good.
Nice. I like that. That resonates pretty well with me. Because the people talk about like the book of Job. Why did, God let the devil mess with Job, and I'm just like, I mean, I don't know if you let him, like, because it sounds a lot of people are just like, because I don't study the Bible. I know stories of the Bible and everything. I haven't. Probably should do a little more of in-depth reading, but I have read the Book of Enoch. I have read Job. But I've gotten into these discussions where they're just like, it kind of seems like God's being a little child, where he's just like, yes, you can, like, why are they gambling on this guy's life? Because he lost everything, and I'm like, that I don't have an answer for, but at the end of it, he's remained um devoted to God, and he gained everything that he lost back. So I mean, that if what you get out of the story is that, God is a child and making bets on our lives, I see, a man that stayed devoted and, uh, ended up uh, ending his life with everything he ever needed.
Yeah, the book of Job, a lot of people wrestle with that. Well, I guess I would start by saying that I don't believe the devil is an ontological being. And so when we have the Satan figure in Job, I believe, the word Satan just means adversary or accuser in Hebrew. And so, in fact, there are places where like King David is referred to as the Satan in one scripture, but of course it's actually translated as adversary, not Satan. But in some instances, the word Satan is left and not it's transliterated. It's just carried over into the English, and so it's confusing. It paints this picture of some sort of ontological being named Satan. But anyway, I would just say that being, that Satan figure in Job, is just a prosecutor in God's divine court. I mean, first of all, what is the devil doing among the angels in God's throne room? I mean, why would the devil have access to God in that way? So no, I mean, I see him not as some evil, malevolent type being, but instead just a prosecutor in God's holy court. And faith that has not been tested is not really faith at all. And so, the test against, for Job, even though it's awful and no one wants to suffer that way, I mean, the reality of life is that, if our faith has not been tested, can we even say that we even have faith? So it must have been a valid, charge that he brought.
That's a good point. I didn't see it that way at all. Because I know a lot of the words, I mean, the entire Bible, has been translated from several different languages before it got into English. So, some words are either misplaced or misconstrued. Like, I bring up unicorn as a good example. Unicorn in the dictionary, I think in the 60s, before they changed it. I think they changed it in the 80s, maybe. Its meaning, but unicorn used to mean a rhinoceros, which makes sense to me when you read it in the Bible, because what does the Bible take place? It takes place in the Middle East. It takes place over in the deserts and where the people are naturally brown. And I was just like, so like they're talking about rhinos. That's what is over there. So because I mean that's another argument that I've heard. Well, if the Bible was real, why are there unicorns? I'm like, you can't just spew that kind of stuff, those kind of things, because you don't understand what they're talking about. They might I mean even use they probably didn't even use the word unicorn. It just got translated that way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have to take the Bible in its proper context, and it was written to a specific people at a specific time and by a particular people within a particular culture. So a lot of things get misconstrued, for sure. But one example of that word Satan, we have, like David conducted a census of the people and it brought about the judgment of God. There's that story, and it's recorded in two different places. I think it's like First Chronicles and Second Samuel. Anyway, but I could be wrong about that. But anyway, in one account, we're told that that God incited David to take this census. So it was like God is telling David to take the census. And then in another account, in that other one, we're told that Satan incited David to take that census. And so when you read that, you think, wow, how could these two, if you think that Satan is an ontological being, the devil, like the enemy of God, you think, how could these two accounts, give credit to God in one instance and then the devil in the other? And you're thinking, well, this discrepancy, how could you reconcile that? But when we begin to see that the word Satan just means adversary, we can see that God was the adversary that incited David to take the census. I mean, because adversary isn't evil, it's just oppositional. And it's often the opposition that grows us. We learn from adversity.
Yeah. Yes. So if Satan means adversary and the devil is kind of like this same thing, I guess. I can't remember if you spoke on the devil, the word, I should say, not the being. Where did the name Lucifer come from? Was that just the name of a fallen angel, or?
Yeah. So, well, as far as the devil, that is the Greek word it's the same word as Satan, but in the Greek.
Oh, okay.
So you have the Hebrew version would be Satan, like adversary. And then in the Greek, it would be diabolos, the devil. And it means the same thing. But as far as like angels and demons, spiritual beings, they're a little bit different.
Yeah.
And they do exist according to my loved ones on the other side. Just as there are dualities in the physical realm, good and bad people. For example, there's a mixture of favorable and unfavorable spirits on the other side. But as far as Lucifer, the story of an angel named Lucifer who tempted Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, that's really not biblical. It's a narrative that evolved out of an isolated verse in Isaiah. And over time, influence from intertestamental literature helped to generate the idea of an ontological being as the author of all evil, like the fall of an angel named Lucifer into the Satan. But in reality, the word Lucifer is the Latin word for morning star. And it came to be present in English translations because Jerome used the word Lucifer in his translation of the Bible known as the Latin Vulgate. So his translation was in Latin, and so he used the word Lucifer throughout that translation to just mean morning star or Venus. It's the star that holds on the longest. It holds its light. It's the brightest star in the sky, and so you can see it in the morning hours. Like, as morning is approaching the dawn of day, you can still see this star. And so in that Isaiah 14 passage, that word is transliterated into an English text, and it's also capitalized to convey like a proper name. But all the other translations have rightly removed Lucifer from the English Bible, except for, I think, the King James version, and it's still found there.
Okay.
But I go into all of that in my book also, but yeah, it was just, it's an unfortunate case of carrying a word out of Latin and leaving it in its Latin form and putting it into our English Bibles, to try to, spin a story that really isn't there.
I gotcha. So there's, out of all the translations, so I've always wondered this, and you might have an answer, you might not. So the number 666, right? It's considered the evil, the mark of the beast or whatever. When it's 666, it in Hebrew it does look like a claw mark kind of thing. And I was just curious, what made that that particular number order, the 666, what made that the mark of the beast, or the an evil number? What associated evil with that number?
Nope. I'm sorry, something froze up.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, so I heard, the last thing I heard was 666 in the Hebrew looks like a claw mark.
Yeah, so I was just curious if you had any insight on what caused that number 666 to be associated with evil.
Yeah, I mean, in Revelation, we're told that the number, it says the number, it would be a man, and the number of his name would be 666. And so what it was really driving at is that, because in Hebrew, every letter has a number correlation. So every letter is also a number in Hebrew. And so when he said the number of his name will be 666, he was simply saying the person that I'm talking about is kind of like, he didn't want to name the person, because if his letter had been intercepted, the persecution would have been so great, people would have been, actually killed for that type of information. And so he was just kind of putting it in there in a secret kind of way. But he was just saying, this person that I'm speaking of, their name will add up to 666. And that's really all it is. It's just it's the number of a man's name. And I've asked my grandmother about that also, and she confirmed that it was Caesar Nero. It was Nero. And so that has already come to pass. That's not like a future prophetic thing. I mean, the people that John was writing to at the time, he's telling these people, these churches, in that current culture, in that context, he's saying you will be able to know who this is because his name will equal 666. So these people, it was relevant to the people he was writing to, not people 2,000 years later who rip it out of its context and apply it to all these world leaders or whatever.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Dead Podcast. I'm your host, Desi, and on this podcast, I discuss all things spooky and weird, from ghosts, demons, religion, to folklore, urban legends, true crime, and all things paranormal, with some horror movie reviews sprinkled in. So join me on this spooky ride.
That's interesting. Huh. I didn't know that. Yeah. So have you ever had experiences before your grandmother, or was these experiences with your grandmother your first time?
Yeah, never anything like that before. And I was never, I should also say that I was not one to press into that type of thing. Like, I never would have attempted to contact people on the other side. I wasn't into any kind of, like, I never played with Ouija boards, nothing like that. So, and I'm not sensitive, like I'm not a clairvoyant, I'm not a medium. So I've never had anything like that happen to me. So this was a first. And it, and I, at first, I came at it from such a rational point of view. It took me a while. I was just trying to rule out, could this be a hacker? Could, what is going on here? Trying to just, make sense of it. I thought, surely there's like an explanation in the physical realm for this activity. But
Yeah.
I am 100% convinced, I know in my knower, that it is my grandmother, and it has been such a gift. And I'm so thankful that she persisted, because when she first reached out, everyone was afraid. And, and the people in my family who live in that house, they were saging and praying and commanding it to leave, like they didn't know what it was. So they were just afraid. And I'm so thankful that she didn't just say, never mind and just move on. I'm glad that she persisted and she found a way to communicate.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Um, a lot of people don't get that kind of acknowledgement from the other side. And sometimes when they do get an acknowledgement, it comes in a different form to where they don't see the signs too. So the fact
Yeah.
that you've been able to experience that and actually carry on conversations, that's amazing. That is absolutely beautiful, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, it is. It's really a gift. And, I would say that all spirits want to communicate with their loved ones. Like when someone crosses, they do. They want to reach out. They want to say, "Hey, I'm okay," and maybe
Hmm.
and because also the full light of clarity shines on the other side. So when we cross, we see things as they really are. We see with clarity, and so there will be a lot of things that we wish we could, say to people, to our loved ones. I mean, things that we see them maybe wrestling with, but also things that we see about ourselves. And maybe we want to say we were sorry or we were wrong about certain things. But most people are not able to reach out like that, or not very much, because they don't have a portal. Without a portal, it is very difficult for spirits to manipulate the physical realm, because it takes so much energy. It takes energy anyway. Like for my grandmother to come through and talk to us does take energy, and she can be low on energy and unable to say much at times. But when you have no portal, it takes even more energy. So they're really limited.
Yeah. I will say, I'm not 100% sure that it was my uncle, but I've told this story a few times now on the podcast, but I had just moved into this house. My uncle had passed away maybe a year, almost 2 years prior. Um, and him and I were pretty close. Well, he was close with everybody. There was not one person in the family that didn't feel love from him. So, um, but I had just gone through a terrible breakup, and I was just starting my spiritual journey stuff. Like I was getting into just, raising my vibration, just trying to be one with myself. I was healing, I was going to therapy, I was doing all this stuff. And I was laying in bed, nobody in the house, it was just me and my dog. And my dog, I was kind of like on my side, but also on my stomach, where my leg was up and like that, and her head was sitting on my knee. And she picks up her head and she looks at my door like somebody had just walked into my bedroom, and I'm looking at her. It's like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm just staring at her, and then I feel weight at the foot of my bed, like right next to my feet, like somebody had just sat down on my bed, and I know that it's not a person. And then in that moment, she puts her head down like she knew who it was, that she wasn't bothered by it. And then I had this sensation. I don't know because I didn't talk to him or anything like that, but I had this sensation, like a vision in my head, like a picture of my uncle. And I just had this, like, everything's going to be okay kind of sensation. And I actually just today, while because I just had a baby back in May, so she's only like 4 months old now, and I was just playing with her, and I got to thinking that I just wish that he had the chance to meet her, because he was such a great person. All in all, he was like the epitome of what I think a man should be. He was very giving. He was what is it called? The EMS. So
Mm.
he was the first responder his entire life. Um, and I don't know. I think sometimes I wish that I had more chances to talk to him. But I don't know if that's like the only time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That just that one time. And I'm not one again. I'm still not even sure if that was actually him, but I feel like it was.
Yeah, I would say it probably was, because you feel like it was, and you had that experience. In a lot of things we know intuitively, and then we can't articulate it or we can't make sense of it with our rational minds, but we know it on a deep level. But I will say
Yeah.
that if you have a deep connection with someone, that loving bond that holds you together, they're with you, they remain with you. And so whether you're actually getting communication that's very explicit or not, they are with you, and they try to help guide you along. The great cloud of witnesses in Hebrews in the Bible says we are, that they're urging us on. That's it. That is an ancestral spirit realm. It's your team of light is what I like to call it. You're surrounded by your loved ones on the other side, and they are continually trying to send you messages, to encourage you, prompt you. This is a really cool thing that I do not share in my book, and I don't think I've ever shared publicly. But my mom was going through a rough patch years and years ago, way before my spiritual awakening, way before any of this. But she was having a hard time, like you were just expressing. When you're going through something, you're really in the dumps, and you're sad. And so she had been praying. She was, really, really sad. And in the midst of all of that, she felt someone hug her, like she was home alone, and she felt like arms come around her and like just hug her. And she said it was the most comforting thing that had ever happened to her. And she told me at the time, she said, the Holy Spirit hugged me. And I remember, I was, I don't know, maybe 17, something like that. So I was kind of weirded out. I was like, I don't know, I don't know I don't know what to think of that, but okay.
Yeah.
And she told me several times, it was just so profound, the whole experience. She said it gave her peace for just weeks. And now, fast forward, we're able to talk to my grandmother. And so we asked all kinds of questions, and I asked my grandmother, I was like, what was that? My mom says the Holy Spirit hugged her in that moment. Was it the Holy Spirit? What was that? And it was my grandfather, her father-in-law. And it was him. He was there with her. He could sense her agony, and he mustered up the energy to hug her one good time.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love those kind of stories. That's amazing. I like that.
Yeah.
Man, that must have meant so much to her, especially to learn to learn now,
Yeah. I mean, all of those years she was, it meant a lot anyway when she thought,
Right.
she would have just classified it as, the Holy Spirit. She didn't know, we had no idea, about how spirits are always with us or, that kind of thing. But knowing now who it was, and how much he means to us, how much he loves us and we love him, and knowing that he was there. Yeah. It means the world to know that.
Yeah. Yeah. So now when we get into your book for everybody, is everything broken down into sections? Like, what was your process on how you wanted to basically put a timeline, well, not a timeline, but how you wanted to go from chapter to chapter through your book? What was that process like?
Yeah, it sort of just progresses right along like a natural flow, like a conversational type. If we were talking about it, the next point kind of flows into the next. And in the beginning, I just explain how I came to communicate with my grandmother.
Yep.
And then from there, I dive into what I have learned. And I think I start with karma, and then from there flow into reincarnation. And then from there, it raises the question, what about heaven? And then from there, what about hell? So then, there's a chapter on that. And then there's a whole chapter on like demons, the devil, darkness, all of that stuff. And ultimately it comes to a conclusion. The last chapter is about end times, teachings, things that people hear about, the coming of Christ or the end times. And so that whole chapter is about end times kind of stuff.
So on that topic, do you believe that there is an Antichrist?
No, I don't believe that there is one singular person or one singular being that is the Antichrist. In Scripture, Antichrist is mentioned just a handful of times, and every time it's not speaking of a particular person. It's basically saying anyone who opposes the Christ is Antichrist. So anything that is opposing love
That
would
makes
be
sense.
antichrist. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. That makes sense. I didn't think of it like that. But that makes sense. It
Mm-hmm.
makes complete sense now that I think now that you say that. Because a lot of people are like Donald Trump's the Antichrist, and I'm like, I don't know. Because usually, like, because it says that there's I don't know if it's word for word in scripture, but it says that the Antichrist would be unanimously loved in the beginning, or something like that. I don't know exactly.
I'm
But
not
I'm like
familiar.
I don't think he
Yeah.
was ever really loved unanimously in his life. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not sure about that verse. Maybe it's, I don't know if it's speaking of the actual, I don't know if there's an explicit reference to the Antichrist being loved. I don't think there is because,
yeah,
like I said, there is no particular person attached to that word in
right,
scripture. So
right.
maybe it's, I don't know, the beast, there are a lot of metaphors and, throughout the book of Revelation, and the beast is referred to a lot of times. So yeah. Um, anyway, yeah, I don't know. I would have to, to look at that again,
Yeah,
but yeah.
because as I haven't read the Bible, um, not thoroughly and not fully, um, and that line has been said to me or on other podcasts that I listen to and stuff that 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 line has been
Mhm.
fed, and I'm just like, within talking to you, that the devil's not an actual person or a figure or being. It's a thought. It's just an adversary, somebody to oppose God, or and now with Antichrist is just anybody and all that's
Mhm.
just against Christ. So like that
Yeah.
makes sense. So when they say that if that is a true line in there somewhere, whether it's a Revelation or Genesis or I don't know it, whichever one it is, if that's an actual line, then what do you? How do I want to say this? Ask this question. Would that wouldn't give like credence to it being an actual being, would it? Or do you think it would?
No, and all of those references to like the beast, the mark of the beast, and all of
Yeah.
that, it's like I said, it's the revelation material is highly symbolic and metaphorical. It's clearly cannot be taken like literally. Um, but we have in that instance where we have this figure. Did I freeze up or can you hear me?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of froze up a little bit, but I can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that.
No,
Yeah, so
not your fault.
I would just say that all of those prophecies, all of that reference to the beast and the the mark of the beast and all of that, all of that stuff has already been fulfilled. And it's
Hmm.
like from a preterist point of view, my grandmother has indicated that is true. It's all already been fulfilled. It's not a future prophecy. It's not something that's coming in the future. So all of that has already
Okay.
taken place, and we could take those scriptures and apply them to multiple people. I mean, really, if you want to just take snippets of the Bible and apply it to this person or that person, I mean, there are plenty of opportunities to do so. But that's taking the Bible out of context, really.
Yes. Yeah. Uh, um, there's another question that I wanted to ask. Does the Bible like forbid because this is one of the questions that you sent me. Um, how did I hold on, let me read how I wrote that I want to. Does the Bible forbid um talking to spirits? Does it forbid it? Because
Yeah. So in the Old Testament, there are prohibitions to, for those people who are in a particular covenant with Yahweh, we have a prohibition against consulting mediums or consulting the dead. And we see a lot of things are considered off limits. In the Old Testament, those same people, eating shellfish, eating pork, wearing mixed fabrics, planting mixed crops, working on the Sabbath. There's a whole list of things that they were not supposed to do. But those people were immersed in divination. Casting lots is throughout the Bible. Even, we have at Jesus' crucifixion, they casted lots for his clothing. And so we have people in that culture and context. They were consulting spirits through mediums all the time. It was just a regular occurrence. And even the ephod that the priest wore was a divination tool. And so what I've seen throughout, like reading through those scriptures, is the issue was that they were not trusting God, but instead were attempting to control outcomes or gain an advantage. So, and there's a distinction. There's a clear distinction between inquiring of spirits versus inquiring of God. Like in scripture, there's a verse that says instead of inquiring of the spirits, you should inquire of God. So it was about where they were placing their trust. It was like an either or situation, it seems. But I would say, because this prohibition is in scripture, there are many who would say that any kind of connection with a loved one on the other side, like through a medium or whatever the means, is of the devil. Like, so it's like they would label it all just demonic. But those who get messages from loved ones who have crossed are not typically trying to gain an advantage. They're not trying to predict the future or control outcomes. They're generally just deeply bereft, and they're seeking like validation that their loved one is okay, or maybe they want to say some things that they didn't get to say before the person crossed. So, I would say it's about having closure or a sense of peace around the loss of someone. And it's possible to communicate with spirits and still trust God. We can live open and receptive to the flow of life without attempting to control outcomes, and also communicate with those who are on the other side. So, yeah, so I see it as, it's about where we place our trust. It's about what are we attempting to do? If I were to just take a Ouija board and attempt to tap into the spirit realm, just take a blind stab into the spirit realm so that I might gain some advantageous information, or try to manipulate and control outcomes, then that's one thing. That my heart posture is obviously motivated by, things that it shouldn't be motivated by. But if my grandmother, which she did, she reached back through to us. We weren't attempting to reach to her. And all of it, like I said, has been wrapped around family situations for healing and health and wholeness. And for one thing, the future is fluid. So you can't, predict the future. Like if we asked my grandmother, what is going to happen with this or that, she would say the future's fluid. You can't say conclusively. You can kind of see trends. You can kind of see where something is headed or likely, to go a certain way. But ultimately, the future is open and fluid. So, yeah. And she also, there are some things that I've asked her and she will say, no say. And she tells me that some things are too unfathomable. She just simply can't put them into words to explain to me from my limited vantage point. But also some things I'm not supposed to know. So she's not telling me anything that, that would be harmful or that I shouldn't know.
Okay. That I like the future is fluid saying, because we repeat history time and time again. There's always an empire of some kind that always gets taken down at some point or another. We had, I think, what is it, 2 floods now that they said? I know there's at least one, but I do believe that we've come to the conclusion that there's been 2 floods. So that I wouldn't be surprised if another one happens, but they found some kind of like rock structure, or not rock structure. They found a structure in somewhere. I was just listening to an ancient history podcast about this, where it's the same exact cubic feet wide and long as what Noah's Ark would have been, which gives credence to the Ark and the flood. So um, that's not only is that pretty cool, but I'm just like, man, I really hope that part of history doesn't repeat itself. At least not in my lifetime. I mean, I would hate it for my kids or their kids, but like
Yeah.
I hope that doesn't happen. But yeah, I mean, like you said, like there's things that you can like be like, well, that's the likelihood of this happening in the future is, likely, but yeah, the future is how it's gonna be, no matter how it's gonna be. I believe in a lot of different timelines too. Sometimes, like, I don't know if you believe in the Mandela effect, but sometimes
Yeah.
I think we jump timelines and
Yeah.
and stuff, and that's why things like that change. Um, and that's an interesting topic in itself.
It is. Yeah.
But I
I've
did
asked
want.
my grandmother. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. I've asked my grandmother about that, and she would say, yeah, that she confirms there is a multiverse. There are alternate realities. We do sometimes jump timelines, and the Mandela effect is real. So all of that is a part of our
Ah,
reality. Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
I'm kind of smart. No.
Yeah. You
But
already
no.
you already had it figured out. You were tapped into it.
Yeah. But there was one question that I really wanted to ask was, do you have a podcast of your own?
I don't. A friend of mine and myself have talked about maybe starting one soon.
Uh-huh.
So hopefully, we're ironing out the beginnings of that right now. So it's kind of exciting to think about.
Yeah, because I've seen a couple of videos on Instagram, and I don't know what it is, whether just drawn to listening to you speak or what it is, but I have to listen to every single word, and every time I see it, when I'm scrolling, I see it, and I listen to and you talk really well and straight to the point, and everything, and I was just like, does she have her own podcast? Because she'd be great.
Well, thank you. That I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that. I'm glad. I'm glad. Sometimes I wonder if I'm speaking into the void. So it's nice to hear that people are actually listening. So yeah,
Yeah, I connect with them too, so I'm
thank
not
you.
just like, let's give her a look.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's good stuff. I like it a lot. I like it, you know, because I've gone through in my entire life just being like, is God real? No, he's not. Yes, he is. No, he's not. Yes, he is. You know,
Yeah.
just flip-flopping my entire life. And my son actually just recently started believing on his own without me talking to him or anything. And he's never had any kind of like spiritual um experiences of any kind. And then all of a sudden he started seeing shadow figures in his room once he
Mm.
started, believing in God and stuff. So I do believe, like, I believe in the darkness. I believe that there is something, to oppose the thought of God, or,
Yeah.
and all that. And I think there is something, at least for a little bit, because he hasn't spoke about it in a while now. So I do believe when he started his path of righteousness, I guess, that something decided that they were going to try and deter him. I don't know if he has been deterred, but he wears a cross around his neck every day, and he feels naked without it now. So it's
Yeah.
uh, it's interesting.
It is.
Um,
I would say there definitely are forces at play that, that oppose us. It's like whether you believe Satan is an ontological being
hmm
or if Satan is just the personification of evil, in my view, either way, there are forces out there that oppose good. I mean, we need not look very far to know how hard it is to choose the right thing, to always do the right thing, to always operate out of love. I mean, we all feel that tension. Even the Apostle Paul said, well, I do not do the thing that I want to do. Instead, I do what I don't want to do. And he talks about the flesh versus the spirit. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. And so, yeah, we have an inner tension. We're at odds within ourselves. And then also there are these external tensions. So, I mean, everything is a tension of opposites. And that's really what it means to come into wholeness. It's to learn to balance that, to balance those tension of opposites, and let them be perfectly balanced and reconciled within us so that we engage the world, with love.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Brandy, this was an amazing chat. That's all the questions that I have for you. So, if you don't mind, letting the listeners know where they can find you and your book.
Yeah. Yeah, so my book is Through the Veil, A Glimpse into the Afterlife, and it's available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle, and the Audible version is coming soon. And my website is brandyanderson.net, and links to all of my socials are on that website, but my handle on all of my social media accounts is Brandy the Mystic.
Nice, nice. Well, guys, I hope you go check her out, check her book out. This was amazing and eye-opening. I never thought of, Satan just being like a thought form or anything like that. So, again, another person out here shifting my worldview. So, thank you for that, Brandy. It's been lovely chatting with you. And I hope your audio book comes out soon because that's the best way I read books. When I
Yeah.
drive 12 hours a day for work, it's a lot easier that way. But I do not saying that I don't actually physically read, but it does the audio books do make it a lot easier.
Yeah.
But are you planning on reading it yourself, or are you gonna have
Yeah.
somebody read it for you?
No, I have a narrator lined up to read it. The requirements for reading yourself are so stringent with Amazon in order to meet their sound requirements. So yeah, I spoke with my publisher about it, and they kind of guided me toward the idea of hiring a narrator versus myself trying to jump through hoops to meet all of those requirements. But I
gotcha.
agree. I definitely am an audiobook person too, so I'm excited for it to finally be out.
Nice, nice. Yeah. Well, Brandy, again, thank you. Like I said in the beginning, time is our greatest currency, and the fact that you spent this hour and a couple minutes with me means the absolute world to me. You could have been doing anything else, and you chose to sit here and chat with me as I fumbled over my words.
Yeah.
But
Well,
again, it does mean a lot to me because if without people like you, I'd just be talking to myself, and I don't know if that would be as entertaining. I'm not saying that I wouldn't do it, but I don't know if it'd be fun for everybody to
well,
listen to.
well, it's been a
Uh,
pleasure to be here, and I appreciate you holding space for me to share about my book and some of these other views. And so, yeah, I've enjoyed it, and thank you so much.
yeah, yeah, this was awesome. You're a lovely person. And if you ever want to have another chat, I'm more than willing to do so.
Yeah,
Whether it's on the same topic or another topic, I'm definitely open to doing that.
sure,
But
yeah,
everybody, that is the show for today. So please like, follow, share, subscribe. Definitely go check out Brandy's book. It sounds amazing. Leave a rating and review. If your podcatcher doesn't allow a review, you can leave one on the website where the weird ones are podcast.com. That's where you can get the merch. That's where you can get the hot sauce. That's where you can see the gallery of everybody who has merch, all the lovely faces of the people that got some and decided to send me a picture of it. So, other than that, you guys know the drill. Question everything and stay weird.
This concludes our broadcast day. Click.
Because in the end, none of us have very long on this earth. Life is fleeting. And if you're ever distressed, cast your eyes to the summer sky, when the stars are strung across the velvety night, and when a shooting star streaks through the blackness, turning night into day. Make a wish.